The more common inverse condemnation situation involves what we call a regulatory taking. A regulatory taking is one where your property, which you continue to own, has no physical property taken from it. No land is taken from you. No access is taken. Nothing is physically taken from you from the property. But a governmental authority has decided to pass some type of a regulation that restricts your ability to use that property. Now, as I think you are well aware, the use of or the creation of use restrictions is a common practice throughout the country. And the common term where that is done is under zoning. It's a very common term. It's a very common practice. It's been accepted and adopted by courts for years. However, earlier in the last century, it came to the point where the zoning ordinances that got to be passed became to encroach more and more and restricted the ability to property owners to use their property in the ways that they expected. So it's gotten to the point where the courts have said, if a zoning ordinance is passed that restricts the use so significantly that it effectively takes the property from the property owner or takes his use away, then the courts have declared that a regulatory taking has occurred and there will be that property owner is entitled to a claim for just compensation. There are basically two standard tests that have been established by the U.S. Supreme Court in this area. One is called the Penn Central test, and the other is called the Lucas test. I'll take the Lucas test first. Basically, the Lucas test says that if the regulation has been established and basically takes away all use for that property, then you have what's called a Lucas taking, and you are entitled to the entire value that that property had before the regulation was imposed. So it's kind of like a total taking. The Penn Central is tantamount to a partial taking. There, a regulation is imposed. The property owner still has some use to the property, but the use has been so severely restricted that the difference in value that the property had before the restriction was imposed and the difference that it has after is significant enough that it rises to the level of a taking and therefore justifies an award of just compensation. That area of the law is fairly complicated. It's fairly complex. It involves some of the more sophisticated areas of litigation in the field of eminent domain. This video series is not designed to address that in any greater detail. I merely go this far with it so you understand the nature of a regulatory taking and the general confines in which the courts have looked at this area of taking for awarding damages.